Hi, this is Cindy
Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and I guess we'll do a sound check first. If you guys can let us know that you can hear us, that would be awesome. I think our internet speeds are looking more steady today, so that should help our live stream. And we have a number of people in the room.
Yep.
We have Garrett, Diana, Justice Akers.
A couple new people, I think, if you want to tell us where you're from. Kilted Gardener, Two Wild Onions, I think.
No, Kilted Gardener's been here before.
Been here before, yeah.
Yeah, but he's here in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
He's from Scotland, right?
Well, I'd say you might be wearing a little more than a kilt here today.
It's snowing tonight.
It's actually snowing right now.
And Kiri from Built on the Rock Homestead, Half Acre Dreams Instant Shop. And Two Wild Onions, you said. Linda.
Yep.
Who else?
Butcher Baker, Queso Maker.
Oh, cool.
Back again.
Welcome. Heritage Farms, Texas. That'll tell you where they're from.
You have the same clock on the mantle, really. So that's a antique. Basically
it was a gift.
Gift for Christmas. It's unretouched. I actually need to get a weight for it.
A pendulum.
It works, but it's running way too fast. It's missing the pendulum. I looked it up and then I forgot to. It's only like $8. I forgot to, which is way too much for a weight. But I need to go buy a weight for it.
Yeah. So
it's probably 1920. No, I looked it up. I got it real close on when it was made. So no.
But early last century.
Yeah, I think it may have been 1910, 1920 range.
Okay. Kilts actually keep you very warm. Well, they are wool. Yeah. That's true. As long as you have some socks on the lower half.
Seamus kept telling me that I need to get a kilt.
My dad had kilts for all the kids, but we're all girls, so we weren't supposed to wear them technically. Yeah. But we had our Livingston clan kilt.
We didn't have I don't know of any kilts. We have a swatch of Murray plaid.
Yeah.
Which is a fairly tight dark green with a yellow stripe and something else. It's not super attractive. It's okay. It didn't stand out like, wow, that's really nice. But
ours were more red.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously we both have some Scottish descent.
Yeah.
But that goes a little ways back, a couple hundred years on my end.
Our clock keeps poor time. They're not supposed to keep perfect time. If they stay within a minute or so, or a couple minutes a week, that is the actual tolerance of those styles.
You can actually adjust it too.
Some ours has an adjustment. Yeah, some have a speed adjustment if they are a fixed pendulum. If they're a drop pendulum, you can actually adjust the length of the pendulum. But yeah, this is a fixed one, and there's a fine adjustment. But we haven't messed with it.
No.
It's more an ornamental. It was a cool clock.
Yep.
So.
And we do have a fire in the fireplace for a reason tonight. It was nice and warm. Oh, kind of warm on Wednesday, right? It was in the 50s.
High 50s.
Yeah.
It was bright
Wednesday,
sunny. It was actually pretty comfortable.
Saturday.
And then yesterday was. So we had almost 70 earlier in the week.
Yeah.
We were doing work until almost sunset last night after market.
Yeah.
I just had a light top and some pants on, and we were.
I could show you what we were doing. Actually,
it was very comfortable, but it was also sunny out.
So we had gotten you had gotten some stuff from Costco, and I went over to our friend PJ's for a couple things he was giving away, and I gave him stuff. Ended up being a trade anyway. But in this cart,
I trust PJ's stuff more than Costco stuff.
I do too. In this cart, we have some PJ stuff. He gave us some Nanking cherries and some pecan, little 1 to 2 year old
cold hardy northern pecans.
Yes, and in the more traditional Costco stuff, there's a couple types of cherries and peach and nectarine. So we've been putting them in the ground yesterday. So this is a catch up for this week. What we were doing yesterday, because we only work on the weekends a lot of times, but these are where the Nanking cherries went. They're a bushing cherry, and so they only get about 6 feet tall.
There's 4 or 5
There's
there?
4 of them. So there's one right in front of the camera there. Our picture is tiny, but if you have a bigger screen, you'll be able to see that. And then there's three more kind of running down the fence line around the corner there. This is the dog run fence area, so it's probably the sunniest spot, although it gets a little shade in the afternoon. So we have those there. We have in the back, in front of our big oak tree in back, we have two cherries and a peach and a nectarine. Yeah, and that's the same area we had some other nut trees and our apple trees.
Yeah, about 2 weeks before we put in 8 hazelnut starts that were paired off of some of PJ's existing, and that fruited hazelnuts are fruiting very nicely. Then we have a couple of chestnuts to the back of that have been in for a year and a half, and they were just kind of stagnant last year. I think they should have taken root, and we'll take off a little more this year.
So. Yeah, so we were planning on putting most of our food forest up front, but we need to take down locusts to create sunshine.
We're like, where do we have sun? Where is it out? We can always move stuff. We're like, where is it good enough?
Yeah.
And or where might it be okay? And
for
so
now.
We did get cling-free peaches because that's one of the, even though you can get some really good flavored ones, and this is nursery stock, so it's nothing heritage. They're cold weather. They had really nice grafts. The grafts were tight. They've probably got a year or 2 years since grafting, I'm guessing, on them. And they had just come into Costco. They just unloaded the crates, so they weren't heavily weatherized and beat up, and they came in at a good price. So I didn't want to get too many because again they could be susceptible to disease or treatment. But they look to be a very good buy. I ended up going to some of the other stores needing some supplies, and most of the trees were between $30, $50, and $100. Wow. Now they were taller, but these were also trimmed down tight, so it's deceptive when they're trimmed for packing.
I think you can see it on the cherry. I think we got
a pretty good. They were $17. So
I think you can see on the cherry picture they actually trimmed off the top of it, which is fine because you want it to grow out anyway.
Yeah, they were well trimmed. They had the littlest buds coming out of them. They looked like they were in really healthy shape. So I said, well, let's give it a little bit of a shot. It's gonna be 5 years before we probably get much.
Can't tell.
Get much off of them to get our first fruit on them. So we can move them if we feel like it. But we think we've got them in between the nuts, and we've got hardwoods over there. So
got a good
building
mix.
Our guilds, we just have to start putting in our lower material around it. Our vines and our ground cover and such.
And we have a few more people joined in here. So let's see here. Julia, hello. I think I've seen the rest. Okay, Green Raven and your mom's here. And Suburban Hillbillies here, and it was in the 80s.
Yeah, did you say yes, we did get them at Costco. Yeah, and so I know a lot of the Costco stuff can be regional, that they get a big buy, and they've got a few pallets in there. I said, God, there are people just hauling them off the shelf on like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. They weren't going to last another couple hours. They were right in the front, but I know they regionally get things that are sometimes specialized. But yeah, it ended up being Costco.
Yep. So nice little orchard, although we're not a rows and columns type orchard, although our apple trees are set
gilded.
Up that way.
It's
spread out. It's with like I said, with the nut trees.
We have sunchokes back there from last year, so it's just beginning to fill in. And so this is back behind our traditional
annual garden.
We have about 3,000 acres of. Is it 3,000? Is that? Yeah, it might be almost that big. Of traditional garden space that's more
3,000 acres.
I mean acres, 3,000 feet.
Not we acres. Have no 3,000 acres.
Yeah, so we have a cattle ranch.
I wish that would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be 3,000 feet.
We wouldn't have to go anywhere to go.
We need to roll. They cost $16.99.
Yeah.
And they're about 3 feet tall. They were
trimmed back, so I think they cut about half the height off.
Yeah, they were tight trimmed. They had the very beginning of a bud, and that was probably just from being in a warm truck and building for a day or two.
Yeah.
And
hopefully that'll.
They had a nice plastic bag.
Yeah.
Holding in a wet
mulch, basically.
A wet mulch, sawdust mulch. Mm-hmm. So they were well packed. I mean, altogether, I've seen them a lot worse condition and packing at most places. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm happy with it for the moment. We'll see if they grow.
So we'll see how they do, and if they don't do well, then we'll go on to something else and try to get some more stuff from friends that we can plant because they're a big
And I
permaculture group.
happened to be through Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Menards.
And everyone was more
Within 2
expensive.
days, everybody was more expensive. Nothing looked any better, and most of the product looked worse. And that's not my go-to place to buy. I mean, Oikos is in our area, and there's some other specialty places. So,
Suburban says she's had good luck with
well, I know they're
Costco
very
plants.
particular about their product,
Yeah.
and that they do tend to pick a very high-end product when they get a good buy. So,
So,
oh
okay,
yeah,
low
that's
cash homestead guilds are a permaculture term that basically are a grouping of plants that grow well together. So, if you have an orchard guild, a lot of times you'll put together three types of trees: a nut tree, a fruit tree, and usually a nitrogen fixing
nitrogen
tree.
or hardwood.
And then below it, you'll grow other perennials or sometimes annuals. You like in our apple area, we have our sunchokes. Last year, we also planted peanuts down there, and Egyptian walking onion, and other plants down there that you can put on the lower end. So it's not like grass. You don't have to worry about that. It's all polycultured so that you're less likely to spread disease from plant to plant, especially if you have your fruit plants separated by other types of trees.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
it's also so it's one of the common most common methods for building a permaculture
yeah.
to limit disease,
Mhm.
limit workload, and so yeah, so instead of rows and columns, and you build up usually 3 to 5 layers. So you have ground cover, which retains moisture. You have vines, which can crawl and grow. And so everything should either be edible. Pretty much everything should be edible. So you're getting greens, you're getting fruit, you're getting berries, you're
Mhm.
getting nuts, or you're getting herbs. So you put a lot of herbs, which have a lot of disease resistance, or you're attracting birds and butterflies through a few ornamentals. It could be cut flowers. So each item should have a secondary use, and each item should support the
The
main
others.
item. So let's say you go with each tree should have, 3 higher up like sunchokes or vines or berries, and
Or
then each
yeah,
of those should ideally have 3 lower level ground cover or herbs. So
yep,
you branch out. So each tree might have 20, 30, 50 related things that are helping it all grow
yeah, around it.
better. So you should get a higher yield and a better, and also because you're mixing so much variety between the different types of trees, the chance that if you get disease, it will only affect one or two and it will stop before
Yeah.
it jumps to the rest of them. Or
So
maybe
it's
it'll just resist it and make it go away because you have a good planting
So
of
it's
things.
companion polyculture
Yep.
on a much bigger scale. So you're really talking levels as well, physical levels. Like Suburban Hillbilly said, what about understory trees? If you have big trees, you can have small trees under them. Like if you have a hardwood forest, you might be able to have pawpaws and elderberries under them, things that like the shade more.
Mm-hmm.
In things like the fruit trees, they like the sunshine. So we actually put them a little bit around the drip line of on the south side of our big oak tree back there. So they are somewhat under our oak tree, but far enough away that they get the sunshine.
So you can actually pick whether it's a vegetable garden area, an open grassy area, a new growth area, or a heavy wooded growth, and you can create a polyculture that tries to create a robust environment that's specifically designed for each of your different. You could do it for a water area,
Yeah.
but you're going to purposefully design wild, primarily edibles to surround everything and work in unison.
And the whole idea, I mean, the bigger concept of permaculture is that everything you do and use has multiple purposes to it. So, like our chicken area, we use our chickens for eggs, meat, and fertilizer. We rotate them around our property to fertilize different areas. We'll take their winter area, which is a little more insulated from our cold and blocking off the wind a bit more, and we'll let the bedding material sit all summer while they're out in their mobile coop. And then in the fall, we'll take that and put it in the garden to fertilize the garden.
So the other thing we learned from Mike Hogue, who's a
Yeah.
local guy who teaches and is very knowledgeable, he has about a 10-year, 7 to 10 year established permaculture on a
Mhm.
1 acre that is a large, it's in the city, but it's just on the edge of a little larger property. Um, what he'll do is, as things overgrow, because that's the natural tendency, he chops and drops the things he doesn't want so much of to create mulch and create ground cover and more room. And he doesn't dig, he doesn't
He doesn't
plow
dig at all.
anything.
No.
He just pokes a hole and he puts the thing he wants in the
In there.
space, in the place where he cleared or harvested something. So you're always promoting things and harvesting and then replacing with things you don't have enough of. So that you could actually grow low stuff and has larger, say, a hardwood tree that's going to be used for lumber or for a sellable hardwood. As that grows up, you may have fruit trees and other things in there, but maybe they get 15, 20 years old. You might actually take them out as your heavy forest develops and replace it with something else, and then maybe use it for smoking wood, for grilling or whatever. So you do permaculture tries to cut the work level and make it more successful,
more
but
efficient.
you still lightly manage it and try and push it in the right direction. Yeah, comfrey.
We don't grow it.
It doesn't grow in our sandy soil.
Not well. So we actually, for a lot of people, will use comfrey for medicinal as well as chop and drop, or as well as creating compost tea. But you can really grow any really fast growing
What were we
plant.
told to use in place of comfrey?
Well, I mean, even
PJ had something that says, no, don't grow that. Grow something else. I forget what it was.
I mean, you could grow nettles. You could grow a lot, anything that grows really fast. Even
and creates a lot of foliage.
Yeah, Mike Hogue actually uses his sea kale for that too, because it grows really fast. It provides you with like 5 vegetables in one plant. Plus, you can chop and drop it.
Tremendous amount of it's very splittable. It's cold hardy, and you get a lot of foliage if you simply just.
It's perennial.
Yeah, if you want to lay down the leaves, or you want to cover up areas to block sun or maintain moisture. So yeah, you find whatever works. And we tried to grow comfrey. Our first year, it didn't grow, and then we talked to PJ. He lives 5 miles away, almost exact same sandy soil, glacier soil, and he goes, "Yeah, don't worry about it. It won't grow." He goes, "I got a little bit in some mulchy areas." He goes, "I can't get it to grow. Move on to something else."
So, I mean, it's just what works in your area. Sea kale works great because it is a beach plant, and we have sandy soil. So we have some that we planted last fall that I got from my permaculture class and Mike Hogue. So I'm hoping that survives and come back.
That should be coming up because it doesn't mind cold weather and the snow.
Hi, Tina.
There's snow in Southwest Missouri with Baker's Acres?
Probably not. Hi, Baker's Acres. And who else just showed up? Mama Woods just showed up as well. Welcome. So yeah, we've been busy this last weekend. I did not get any seeds planted, but at least we got a bunch of stuff.
You planted earlier, or was that
last
week
weekend
that you planted? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you split out the elderberry sapling that's been in water and starting to bud.
So we had some that were starting from branches in water and got them started, and they were starting to bud. And I had 6 cuttings, so I put 4 of them in dirt or in soil this weekend, and then
sea kale. It may be called sea.
No, sea kale.
Not kelp. Like it grows in the sand, not in the water.
Yeah, kale, like the vegetable. But anyway, I put the elderberry cuttings in soil. I left 2 in the water just to see what they would do. They were also the 2 that weren't budding as much. So, and then I went and put the pecans that we got from PJ and put those in a couple of big pots to get them going.
They're 1 to 2 year seedlings, so they're long and scrawny, and they need some care for another year or 2 before they can go on their own.
Yeah, we did plant those fruit trees. We were really expecting rain today, and then they said maybe snow, and well, I'll show you what it looks like outside just before dark. It rained all day.
Yeah,
it rained all day today.
They're talking 6 inches of snow north of us.
Yeah. But this was just before it was getting dark when I went out to take care of the chickens tonight. It's starting to stick a little bit. It just started snowing.
But we did plan. We made last minute plans. I got home from market and we'd already planned. So we had worked with our feed store to do a blend of growable unmilled seeds for a chicken forage to be scattered. He said almost 15 items. And I told him, I said, when I was talking to his assistant, I said, be creative. I mean, I told him,
Whatever you think chickens would eat.
if you think it might grow, throw some in the blend because we have to broadcast spread it. We can't hydro seed it. I don't have a deep enough tines to do anything. So it sits on the surface, which means a lot of it. We have wild turkeys in the backyard this week. Showed up again.
We're feeding our turkeys
crows
now.
were back there today, but so we broadcast spread. So yesterday when I got home, I scalped the yard down to about 1.5, 2 inches. Took up all the big sticks in the back, and I think 2 inches was as low as I felt like I could go without
Scraping.
without bottoming out in the back. And so I basically mulched down the backyard, which we had done in the fall to help work the leaves in, and then I broadcast spread this 15 blend of everything under the sun all over the entire under woods area, and then even our grassy area, all the way except for where the chickens are in their hoops, and I saved some behind.
In their hoops? In their
fence.
Yeah.
So the goal is to grow a forageable seedlings of, they can eat the young stuff if it grows into a full grain seed, because there's peas, there's brassicas, there's radishes, there's all kinds of, barley, wheat, buckwheat, probably oats.
Yeah.
Might be rye or.
Tina! Zia Bible hatches 4 eggs, about 10 chicks, and put them under the 2 silkies last night, and they were accepted. Yay! Oh, good. Yeah, that sometimes happens. Especially,
crows are why you can't grow strawberries.
We have wild strawberries.
Yeah, we get crows for sure. Not too bad.
Yeah.
But we have wild turkeys. They just showed up. We saw them for the first time this year, yesterday.
Yeah.
Two very nice males, toms, and 6 or 8 large females and smaller females. So they were looking good. That was before we put down the seed. So I think we sacrificed most of it. So it was actually part of the plan. Scalp the yard, spread the seed, and I was hoping for a little bit of snow that it would give it more time to seed in and have water and to possibly get a start before the birds went too nuts on it.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, we don't have bees yet. We just don't have time. We really wanted to do bees the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, we have the natural bees, but we have
natural bees, but we've put in some buckwheat. It grows very good on our soil.
Yeah, it does.
So we want to bring on some honeybees or other bees in the
future,
Karen. But it's a project we don't have time for right now.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff going right now. Next weekend, we have to go back across the state again for Easter.
Do we do anything with the tiny strawberries? Yes, Cindy does.
We do. We eat them and we make them into jam.
But you brought them into the garden.
I transplanted a bunch of them into raised beds in the garden a couple years ago. And last year they got a little bigger. I got a little bigger strawberry than what you would get in the woods.
We picked a few hundred. I mean, hundreds.
We got
of them.
A lot
we got
of them.
What, a few quarts? 3 or 4 quarts.
Yeah, we got a little bit of. Yeah.
We didn't do anything. We didn't really straw them over or do anything to them this year. I'm wondering if we should. We should just stick the broad fork in and give them a little.
I would just leave them alone.
Give them a little wiggle.
I would just leave them alone because that's what they're not disturbed in the forest.
We had a pack of crows kill a couple of silkies.
Yes, we did. One silkie.
They came in and we were walking the dog, and within a few minutes it had pecked the neck out and it basically bled out. The neck was all torn up. The rest of it was there. We're like, well.
Yeah. So I have seen crows.
Yeah,
I had someone tell me that only ravens will do it, not crows. And no, they were crows. We don't really have ravens.
No, we don't have. Yeah. They were crows.
And our neighbor caught crows on her trail cam, picking off. It was a whole flock going after mama with about, I think she had 20 chicks, and it was just too many, and they were half grown, and they were too many to get under her. So they're just picking them off. Can you eat the crows?
Can you eat crow? Yeah, probably.
Probably, but I don't know if I'd want to. They're probably bony.
I don't know. Most wild birds eat all right. I would cook it well done. That's for sure.
I'd rather go for the wild turkeys.
Yeah, I've never had wild turkey. My cousin got one a couple years ago.
Someone posted one on Abundant Permaculture Facebook page for the members and said that she got a wild turkey and she loves eating them. She said they're the most amazing meat.
A lot of people say they're amazing. I know they taste totally different than store-bought, but I know that people really do enjoy wild turkey if it's
I haven't watched that video of Doug and Stacy's yet, but I
Which
did
one?
see it come out. They did a
Oh,
video
did they?
on bees that's like 40 minutes long
Oh,
or
really?
something.
I haven't seen a
Yeah.
Doug and Stacy video for a while, actually.
Yeah, gotta go. Just been
We've
so
been so
busy.
busy.
I've been having a
And
hard
we do
time.
kind of follow them. It just,
Yeah, been a hard time keeping up with everybody. So, including our own channel, we'll have a video coming out probably in the next week and a half saying why we have a lull in our videos other than our live shows. So keep your eyes out for that. We'll have probably, you know what, next week is Easter. We'll
Yeah.
probably skip live show next week.
It'll be hit or miss. We need to go to Ann Arbor for part of the day to see some family, and we need to grab some stuff that they have there.
Yeah.
Her sister moved.
I think
and
it's
there's
just going to
some-
be too busy. I think
Yeah,
we'll
so
say,
it's
It's a big
we may get
holiday.
on, but we may not.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can check it out. But
Wild turkey, yeah. You definitely can shoot wild turkey. I was looking up. Michigan
hunting-
has a spring. They have a fall and a spring
Hunting
season,
season,
and it
yeah.
actually starts next Sunday.
next Monday, I thought you said.
Sunday, Monday, 21st, I think.
Okay.
And it runs for about a month in the spring. And I don't know I know there's shotgun, and I think you definitely do bow and arrow. I don't know the details.
If
but-
it's Sunday, it starts on Easter.
yeah, I think it may be incidental
Yeah.
this year, but
Yeah.
21st. I think it starts on Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's totally different. It's a game bird, so it's gonna be lean, and so you do need to be careful on cooking or brine it really good because it could turn out dry.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't cook it like a butterball.
Nope.
That I know. I have not had the opportunity to do it, but I have cooked game
You'd
birds.
have to cook it like your old roosters, low and.
Well, you can.
Roast a little wet?
What I would actually do on that one, incidentally, I would take the legs and thighs off, and neck, and I would braise them in liquid.
Okay.
Let them go until they get tender. The breast, I would cook hot and fast. 350, 375, but I might want to brine that for 2 days first.
Okay.
So I would cook it in 2 pieces. That's a good way to do turkeys anyways. That way you can really maximize your tough meats and get a lot of flavor. You don't overcook the breast meat. There isn't going to be a lot of breast meat because they're not bred for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they do fly, but you're not going to have that huge, white breast meat to begin with.
It's
So,
crazy to see those guys fly too.
oh yeah, they're
massive.
yeah, the toms are really big.
Yeah. Okay, if you find
The oven, I saw that you started the kale in the oven.
Oh.
I guess you don't use your oven that much. Was that just with the pilot light on or something to give it a little extra warmth?
I missed that.
Started the kale in the oven and transferred it into
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Kale likes cold weather though. It doesn't
Yeah, it
need
does.
a lot of heat at all.
If you find the lead, you have to wash the dishes.
Yeah,
one
I've
side.
heard that. Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, so
That's why you use an arrow, I guess, because it's a lot easier cleanup. But I know most people use a turkey shut.
shotgun. Yeah. Okay, so I guess we could do with Ask the Chef. Someone early on said they had a question for the
Yes.
chef, a cooking question. Anybody can ask any questions. He'll answer.
Maybe if we know the answer.
Well, you're the chef, but I probably would not know the answer. So if you guys want to go ahead and ask those questions, you can. Or
Domestic
we can.
turkey on the grill today. Yeah, whole grilling turkey is really good.
Yeah.
I enjoy that, grilling or smoking it.
Yeah, turkeys are klutzy and
They
noisy
do make a
flying.
lot of noise flying through we had some
Yeah.
fly over the house, so we have a ranch style house, so
Yeah,
the roof peak is
low.
20 feet or less from the ground. And they came zooming over the top of the house
All
and
the way to the
landed in
back of
our
the
back
backyard.
field because they do nest back there and stuff. And they came over like a shadow, and we're like, "What was that?" And I said, "Sydney, I think it's a turkey." She goes, "Turkeys don't fly." I'm like, "We saw
feel
some
little.
more." We're like, "They definitely flew in." So yeah, they will fly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I actually meant shooting the crows. Okay. Yeah, well, the crows do have their benefit. They do chase away hawks. So
And they do clean up a lot, help clean up the roadkill and whatever else.
That's true too.
Duck fed in a spray can? Are you kidding me?
Why? Okay, I guess duck fat is nice to use.
I want more duck
cook-wise,
fat
but-
than that. I don't need to spray
Yeah.
it on there. That's crazy. Wow. Good, smart idea for whoever's marketing it, but you got to be nuts. I'm sure it's blended on top of that.
I don't. Okay, trying to see if we missed any other questions here. Ask the chef. What are your thoughts on sous vide? You
I
do it.
I do some sous vide.
You do
Yeah.
it. We have a video on sous vide ossobuco.
Yeah, the pork
Ossobuco.
ossobuco.
Hmm.
I Sous vide is a cooking technique, just like frying or braising or grilling or sautéing or pan searing, smoking. It's nothing more than that. Um, where-
Right, in an HOA,
oh, okay,
not.
yeah, you're in HOA, not that HOA. Yeah, you're either in one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Um,
no.
so sous vide is a wonderful technique for improving consistency because you tightly monitor temperature and hopefully time, and it allows you to also limit
Night kilted
to
gardener.
control the environment of how much liquid and things surround it. So you can do marinating and flavoring, you can do tenderizing, so people can abuse it and do either unsafe things or things that don't make sense. But when used properly, I wouldn't cook everything sous vide. It's a phenomenal tool. A lot of chefs who are very leery of it, as they start working with it, realize it's hard to cook a banquet for 500 people when you don't set, like I would do boneless short ribs, which is neck chuck roll actually. I would do those for 200, 300, 500 people. I would set them up earlier in the week, and I would cook them perfectly. I would clean up the sauce. I'd repack them with sauce. I would rewarm them in bags using a sous vide rewarming method after the sous vide cooking. And I could cut open as many as I needed and put them on plates one right after another with just a little sauce around it. I'd have extra sauce on the side, and we just had to deal with the starch and veg and garnish. So yeah, there's all kinds of things, but I don't know what all you're thinking about doing.
You have to
Um,
have the right temperature, right
you need to know
time.
your time and temperature. You also need to stay out of your danger zones
Yeah.
because the long, slow cook, if you're not hot enough, you could and there are people recommending um, applications where I really feel like it's a little too cool and you're at a risk of food poisoning. So you need to be careful of that first, and then the
Mhm.
rest has to do with the mechanics of it. But you can get some beautiful, beautiful results that one you would either never get, or you would have to be very skilled and spend a lot of time standing next to an item monitoring the heat. So yeah.
Oh, the white picket fence has been sick. Oh no.
Mm.
Well, I hope you're feeling better. Okay. And Tina says, how can she break the Silky's hard shell open without breaking the yolk? Practice? No. I
Sh-
have problems with the inner lining more than the
yeah, I
shell,
mean
but
shells can be harder. Like, well, duck and turkey eggs are really hard. Use a hard edge of like a bowl, but it needs to be a sharper edge,
mm,
or a back of a knife, not a rounded edge, so that it gets a um,
cracking it.
nice crisp crack in it. Um, yeah, and then that membrane could be kind of tough, but you could actually poke the membrane with a knife if you needed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting that membrane to open up. We don't really break that many silky eggs
No,
sometimes.
I tend to use them more for our hard-boiled eggs because they're great snack size.
Yeah.
So I usually save them for a couple weeks and then hard-boil them. And I do that because they get more of an air pocket after a couple weeks. So actually, you guys know that your water test for testing if they're fresh or not are actually not telling you if they've gone bad or not. They're telling you how old they are because the longer an egg sits out, the more it has time to absorb air through the shell, and and it will get a bigger and bigger air pocket in it. So if it's laying flat, it's fresh. You just got it. If it's laying flat in a pot of water, if it's coming up on end, it's getting a little older. If it's standing on end, it has a decent air pocket. And if it's floating, it's probably a few weeks old and has a good air pocket in it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's rotten.
No.
But a
Just
lot of
old.
people will say if it's floating, they get rid of it. It could be, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it is.
Yes, and using a butter knife or like a table knife, using the back of a table knife to
That
help
would
crack
work.
it
Yeah.
is a common method. That's a good method to kind of control it.
How about tamales?
Yeah, tamales are something I've done some, but I don't do a
We
lot.
usually buy them
And well, we buy them
because
because I was going
there's
to say tamales are not the easiest thing to do really well.
yeah.
It wasn't something I grew up with. I mean, my mom's in here. I don't think she's ever made tamales. So I've worked with a lot of Spanish crew in the kitchen where typically one of their wives, it seems like the women make them way more than the men, but sometimes the men make tons of them. There's always somebody that like sells them as a
Hmm.
side business or sells them to the
We have
church.
someone at the market that sells them, and they're really
Yeah,
good.
and they're not a side business, a primary business.
Yeah,
So I find a lot of times go find that person and buy them. They'll cost you about $1.
you can freeze them.
Dollar twenty. It depends on how big they are, but the larger ones are usually $1 to $1.25 or less. So you should. And I recommend try them. Now I've had a lot of Guatemalan ones, which are different than Mexican ones.
Mm.
We actually bought some recently, the little ones that were kind of spicy pork ones, kind of a true hot tamale. But it's basically masa meal. You can buy the masa meal in most of your grocery stores. It's a fine cornmeal that's been lye treated. That's the should make up the vast majority of a tamale. Is mostly the cornmeal, and you can read up on cooking that. What you fill it with, whether it be seasoned chicken or pork, or beans and cheese. You know, vegetables. Sometimes it's got a little pepper in it. That has to do with your traditions of where people grew up and how they, it's usually so. One of the guys, Raimundo, his wife made tamales and sold them as a side business. She was taking care of the kids, didn't have a job, and I don't think she didn't speak a lot of English, so she was having a hard time finding a job. She made really good tamales. I said, Raimundo, how many tamales do you get out of a chicken? He goes, oh, I don't know, maybe 100, because traditionally there's
They're tiny.
just a little pulled meat in it. Some of the Guatemalan ones around Christmas would actually put raisins in it, raisins with the chicken,
Hmm.
and that's
They make it a little sweeter.
yeah. And I have made them a few times, but it's something you need to do a lot to get proficient. You take the corn husks, which have been soaked, either one or a big one, it's a couple of them, and you actually take the back of the spoon and you smear the masa, the cornmeal mix in there, and then you put a little spoonful of the filling, and then
And roll it
you
in.
roll it back together tight, and then they should be steamed.
Mm.
So ideally, they're in a pot with a little bit of water, or you can put them in a colander over a pot, like a double boiler, and they should ideally be steamed. And
Mm.
they're very, very tasty when even halfway done properly. So, and when they're done, really well, they're very tasty.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But it's not something being in Michigan.
It's
There,
not
you
some.
know what? And that's not true because there are some good tamale places. When you get just a little west of here and south,
Yeah.
it's a heavy, heavy, heavy migrant fruit and agriculture area,
Mhm.
and it has been for 100 years.
Yeah.
There are some Spanish shops and tamale shops and stuff floating around out there. There's some serious food that will blow you away. People don't realize it's there, and it's been there a long time. So yeah, you actually can find some places around here.
Sweet tamales ones with a hint of strawberry. Wow.
I have not
That's
had them with strawberry. I've had
no.
sweet ones that have spices and like raisin,
Yeah.
but I've never had them with strawberry.
I like mole. The sauce.
Yeah, and a lot of times you use a brown, not really a mole, but close, or a white pulled steamed chicken. But most of the time there's a spice,
Hmm.
a nice brown spice blend. Most of them are not very spicy, but you can have some will lay in a little piece of hot jalapeno or hot pepper, just a little strip along there, which
Yeah.
I do like. I was gonna say
Doesn't the Guatemalan one? They have a one with jalapeno and
sometimes,
cheese or
but in
something in it.
Guatemala doesn't tend to have things particularly. Oh well, yeah, the hot, not so much hot food, but the cheese
Yeah.
one sometimes has some
Some pepper in it.
jalapeno or serrano. Yeah, built on the Rock Homestead. You're out in Texas. You're probably in a lot more serious tamale country than
Yeah.
you know.
Cool trick with tamales where you use a tortilla press to make your masa, and you wrap them up, and it's super easy.
I've never seen it done.
Hmm.
That's with a tortilla press. That's interesting. I have to check that out. Yeah, I've always seen it done in the palm of the hand,
Yeah.
and that's where I
That's
think people
traditional.
start doing it as kids. And I know the whole family gets together, and of course, at Christmas time and probably Easter and most holidays. But a lot of times, the women and the girls and everybody, it's a family thing. So you make hundreds of tamales and you eat till you can't eat any more that day, and then you freeze them frequently too.
Low Cash Homestead is talking about our backyard.
Do we aerate? I don't have a good way to aerate. So what we did last year in the front was I scalped,
Hi, Food Forest.
and then I actually got an overseeder, which basically tines and it doesn't tine, it cuts.
Mm.
And so I overseeded the whole front yard, and then I broadcast spread. I did not. Rain was coming in. I did not have time to do a rake over. We got very poor germination, lots of birds, it's somewhat dark in some of those areas, and I think so. We had a lot of loss, and we had some weird weather.
Yeah.
Um, but I just don't know how well it went in there. I felt like I wasted money somewhat on some better seed and renting the overs to do the overseeding. In the back, it's on the edge of our forest and under some heavy oaks. I feel like there's too much junk back there. So what I can't we have
We have a lot
a
of wild plants back there and a lot of wildlife back there.
yeah. So I would if I had a haul behind tines or something, I would do that. But I have a heavy garden tractor, not a large tractor.
Hmm.
And then from our local conservation district office, which is right around the block, it's 2 miles away, they actually have
Around the country block.
yeah, they have injection seeders that you
Yeah.
can rent very cheap. The problem with injection seeder is so big. We have roots back there, and I
Hmm.
won't want to break it, but an injection seeder is so big you can't make the turns, and we don't have a big enough tractor for it.
Yeah.
So we're sort of in that in between ground that if I had like a front loader with some implements, I could probably do a better time. So the key here is I got 50 pounds of feed seed, which is a little less germinatable, but pretty much going to have a high germinating rate. Got that blend, and I got 50 pounds for $30. So versus
Yeah.
paying $100 a bag for for like 50-pound bags of specialty chicken forage and where the field grasses and stuff. Um, we cut out the cost and just assume we're going to lose most of it to wildlife and failure to germinate. And then what grows is at a inexpensive and not a lot of time. So
So,
unless anybody has a better method,
yep. And Tina, about feeding the chicks yellow squash, you can feed them anything you don't want to eat that is food based.
yeah, they'll
Um,
eat
I
anything
will
almost.
I would suggest for chicks just to make sure you have a starter feed for them because it's a little higher protein than the regular feed until they're old enough to start laying. And then if you have a way to set them up so mom can get them out foraging, they'll learn how to forage anything. So yeah, they'll eat if you're giving like scraps to your chickens, the chicks will eat it too. In fact, mom will teach them what is the good stuff, really good stuff, and it's really fun to watch because they'll make this little they make this little noise that the roosters make also when there's good food and they're trying to call the hens to them. The moms also make that same little noise.
So you can feed scrap wise um, anything in your refrigerator, any scrap that you trim on vegetable you're not going to use, anything in your refrigerator that's left over or going bad, even if it's moldy, you can feed them all forms of plant meat, cheese, eggs, dairy, not too much dairy, but you could give them yogurt,
There's certain things they won't eat. They
yeah,
won't eat avocado pits. They won't eat the
avocado
avocado
skins,
skins or the citrus skins,
yeah, they'll
but
eat the fruit.
they'll eat the inside.
They don't like to crack through hard shelled things, so you want to
Yeah.
break it open.
So if
So
you have a whole
yeah,
squash, you might want to break it open and give it
so
to
we
them.
do not feed very much fat or meat at all. We basically
Yeah.
don't because we don't want to attract the possums and other coyotes
Or
with
the
meat
raccoons.
scrap.
Yeah.
But you could,
Yeah.
if you have them penned in, you could feed them all of that. There's very little they won't eat. They prefer high protein,
Mm-hmm.
so they actually would prefer the meat and cheese. So a lot of people say, well, we only feed our chickens vegetables. Actually, they prefer the bugs and the protein, the cheese, and meat
They
and bones.
are definite omnivores. Yeah. And they're
Um,
scavengers,
yeah,
so
and
they eat
what
everything.
weigh if you have a bucket for it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it, don't worry if it's moldy, if it's way beyond what you would eat.
They won't eat what they don't like to eat.
Yeah,
I
if it's
mean,
really,
this.
oh, they will not eat onions. They
No, they
may eat
won't.
spring onions. They will not eat your onion skins or your outer onion shells on a
We still
matured onion.
we still put it out there because whatever they don't eat, compost.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
love
So
herbs, and
yeah.
that helps their immune system.
Hmm.
So herbs that are going a little bad, or the sticks and stems,
Hmm.
um, or if you strain anything out of a stock, we keep a bucket on our counter that goes out almost every day. We just
Yeah.
keep it out there.
And we just bring it out to them for treats every
Yeah,
day. Yeah, grower feed and have calcium on the side. That's what I do for my
yeah.
whole flock because really the roosters don't need the calcium. My ganders don't need the calcium. It's just the hens. So I always do our calcium as free choice
We
for the
put our
hens.
eggshells back in also.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
in the hen, not in with the roosters. They don't need them. We have a currently have a setup for 3 bachelor roosters that need to go to the freezer someday when we get time. But
Some people feed their
yeah,
some people feed their dead chickens back to their chickens. We don't like that idea. It's
just if
not
there's
it's not
disease.
so inhumane as it is. We're concerned if there was a disease issue,
Yeah,
we don't want to spread it. Now I know some people feed their dead poultry to their hogs.
yeah.
Different animals. I'm still a little anything that's dead. If I don't know the
The
reason,
reason
I
for
would
them.
rather
Yeah,
bury it fairly deep and let it deep compost
yeah,
if it's viral or disease related. If we know that it was, say, attacked by a wild animal and I don't want to eat it because, I'm not sure what the wild animal had, and if we don't have hogs, then maybe I'd feed it to a hog
yeah.
or it just sort of, yeah. But I'm a little leery. We don't feel like we're so stressed that we need to back feed to keep them fed. So,
Yeah, raccoons are cute. They just can be pretty darn destructive, and especially for chickens. They will
yeah.
eat a leg off a live chicken just by pulling it through
Yeah.
the fence.
So we just keep the meat and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, every once in a while we have a little chicken bone or something ends up in there. It's fine. We don't.
yeah,
But yeah, if we had a guard dog or we had a more active farm environment, we might f- feed more of that stuff,
yeah,
back feed more of it, bone
yeah.
wise. But we don't have that much
Suburban, exactly. Depends on
bone.
why it died. If it died from disease, it
Yeah, I'd be leery
wouldn't.
because I don't want to eat it and I don't want to get the other chickens sick.
Yeah. Um, it was a minute or two. Okay. Sorry, that was talking to someone else.
So let's see what else is going on. We've overseeded, we've done nut trees, we've done some fruit trees. We're getting ready to wrap the garden. So we bought deer
Yeah.
fencing last year because we'd lost some deer fencing. We
But
put
we
in
keep
new.
tearing it apart with the
Well, I
lawnmower.
also bought one that came in at a good price, but I couldn't tell it was super, super thin.
Cheap.
It was almost like an aerial netting, even though it was for deer.
Although I will say you did catch the metal fence once with the tractor and
Yeah.
it survived. It bent a bit, but it survived. So I kind of like the idea of the metal fence
So
anyway.
yeah, so I got in some 7 foot metal fencing. So we're gonna rewrap that for the long term because we think that garden perimeter isn't gonna change for a while. Because the rule is you should plan on maintaining a fence line for 3 to 5 years before you even T-post and wrap it in, wrap it in any form of put any effort into a more permanent fence. So we got to wrap that. We have not turned the soil yet. So we did last week get
Oh, we
in.
don't really turn it.
Well, we
Yeah, we're
it's
Broadfork it.
turning it. We don't
It's aerating it.
functionally turn it, but we
It's aerating it.
loosen it. So um,
We don't really till it. But except that first year when we were breaking up sod, that was the only time we've tilled basically. But yeah, we're gonna Broadfork it.
if you have, but rock,
She's on a rock. She can't bury anything.
oh yeah, duh. It's like don't worry about burying. There's really nice protocols for even whole cattle. That's true. I forgot you're on such rocks. Yes. For
That's
any of you who are interesting that have any type of animals and you have even a small amount of space, I think it's University of Minnesota has nice protocols. It's called whole animal deep composting
yeah.
because a lot of farms over time they decide they have to cart off and get a dumpster if they lose say a cow or a hog for a life threatening injury or disease. They pay to have it removed. So one, you've lost your product, which has cost you money and feed, and two, you now have to pay to haul it away. Well, there are methods for doing, digging holes 5, 6 feet deep, using straw and bedding, and doing a 2 to 3 year composting. And it doesn't matter if it's diseased, bones, whole animal, and that you can come back and you can actually, it's been tested to get a safe
Guessing that
compost.
works for everything except maybe prion.
I don't know what their concern is for prions, but if it's rarity
Prion was
or if it's just because there's so much time in soil and break. And you also
yeah.
get a hot compost over time. So they tell you the ratios of how deep, because you got to be clear of your springs and water sources, of course. But then they tell you how deep and how much material, what materials to bury around
Mm-hmm.
a certain size, and then what if it's 2 years or 3 years,
How
and then you
long?
go back, and that's probably going to be compost for like trees, maybe not
Yeah.
your vegetable garden, but it is a very
Yeah.
legitimate way to do and though everything but the bones within a couple of years will be broken down, and if you bury the bones a little longer, you can then go burn those for bone char,
Hmm.
and use those on your garden
Yeah,
years later.
you probably don't have to dig very deep for your quail, huh? um, to compost the quail.
Yeah,
Um, okay, Green Raven just bought fertile eggs and put under old broody hen, hoping for a couple to hatch. That'd be awesome. A couple hatch. I, that's awesome. We have a bunch of eggs we've been saving and waiting for our hens to
I
go
think one
broody.
went broody yesterday
One
finally.
went broody yesterday. Our Silky went broody yesterday, and I'm giving her back her own eggs to sit on. So hopefully we'll have some more Silky hens because we lost 3 out of our 4 this winter. So we only have the one, so we need more Silkies to raise to be our mama birds. But I'm hoping some of the ones from the main flock will go broody. Houdini usually does, and usually there's 1 or 2 others that'll go broody. Not most of them, but they should soon. So
Yeah,
hopefully
you can, and again, we're not livestock farmers at all. But I
you
was
can
doing
what?
some reading a number of years ago. Yeah, they built a pyre and for one
Okay,
of their goats.
yeah,
Yes, that is another acceptable method. Obviously you can do that. The problem with that is you need a lot of fuel. It can stink. The smell is
stink.
not desirable. The hair and such, it's not desirable. So that is based on your resources and space. That's definitely a safe method, especially
Hmm.
if you're concerned about most diseases. But this is the alternative. The burying methods, I think, was sort of forgotten, and then realizing that that's such a doable because most farms have a backloader or something where you can dig a decent hole, and if you do it right, do it and you're done. You
Yeah.
stop wasting time and money. You don't have to cart it off your land.
Carrie, you might have to put rocks on your dug hole to keep the animals
Yes,
out.
yeah, they're probably going back in on it.
Yeah, if it's not deep enough. Yeah, I've had that happen with the like chicken feathers and stuff that something it wasn't deep enough and something dug it up.
Yeah,
Um,
when we lose a chicken, we just go into the woods and we dig a hole 16 inches or so and just
just
give it a
bury
good
it back there.
bury and let it do its thing.
Oh, excuse me.
And we could throw them in the trash can, they'd take it away, but then the trash is probably going to stink before they come.
No, yeah, that would not be nice. Plus, it decomposes best in dirt than in a trash
Yeah,
trash
so
bag.
yeah, burning or burying
Yeah.
is definitely the way to do it when you have to. Obviously, we want to keep them and either use them for their source or for their
Yeah.
food source or for whatever else they're intended for, ideally. But
Yeah. So anyway, I think we've gone through most of our stuff. Next weekend we're out of town. Saturday, hopefully I'll get some more stuff done around here on um
did we ever get the first question? Was that the tamale question, or was
I don't know who they just said they had a question. They didn't say
it was all the way
what the
back at the
question
very?
was. No, but they didn't say what the question
That's what I was
was.
wondering.
I don't know who it was. I don't remember who it was.
It was right. It was the very first
Yeah.
start point. Um,
Sorry, we're going back to look at the notes here. Um, I don't know where it is.
904. I think it was before 904.
That's the very beginning right here. I have a question
Right
for the
there.
Half Acre
Half Acre
Dreams.
Dream.
Did we get your question
If
answered,
you're
Hacker?
still hanging out, and if you still
Oops.
remember your question, and it wasn't
Unless
tamales.
if no, I think that was that suburban.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know.
tamales. I think most chefs, going back to tamales, really enjoy them. They're a big cultural thing and
Yeah.
want to learn about how people make them. Um, and how do you make yours? What makes yours different? What seasonings? It's mostly about the seasonings,
Hmm.
and I think people really enjoy them because it's a big cultural thing. It's not just a food, but it's a really tasty food. So yeah.
Green Raven had a pet rabbit in the freezer for a year before burying. Something dug it up several times. Oh
Oh, geez.
no. Um,
I have a couple rabbits in the freezer. They were not pets. They were given to me by a friend who does backyard rabbits. I just got 2 ducks from her.
was it the sous vide question? May have been the sous
Oh,
vide
maybe it was a
question.
sous vide question.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. Oh, our friend has a new baby sheep
Yeah,
down the
the
road.
baby doll sheeps.
Baby doll, a baby doll sheep.
Second, they had a young one last year too.
Yeah, boy last year, boy again this year.
Yeah. Temperature regulation questions for sous vide. Yeah, and you can do some basic sous vide in an Instapot. And frankly, well, A crock pot sort of does sous vide, but it gets kind of hot, and you can't set your temps on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can look up online. There's some really good forums. I would find some of the more established ones. You can find charts for different cuts of meat and different preparations, and they may even ask you, do you want it pink like a steak? Do you want it fully cooked, or medium rare? Do you want it fully cooked? Do you want it tender? Do you want it falling apart? And your time and temperature can vary between, say, a pink pork loin that's on the rare side to a shreddable pork shoulder that's a barbecue pulled pork. Uh, those can all be done with a sous vide style. I do briskets on a sous vide base. Sometimes open. I actually don't put them in a bag, but I put them under moisture in a combi oven, which is a.
And you did the porchetta di testa.
I did that sous vide at
that
the
was
Rhodes.
at the Rhodes.
Yeah.
So if you've seen the video.
So the beauty of the porchetta di testa, which is a pork head, the bones removed, so it's just the facial meat, fat, and skin. You roll it tight, porchetta, season it, a little bit of herbs and seasoning, and then you tie it so it's a porchetta. Well, the beauty of the bag is the bag holds it tied. Now you could just roast it. You could slow roast it for hours, which is how it was originally done.
Mm-hmm.
But now you can vac it, and so you get it the air out. You crimp it much tighter, and so you can help its form and remove air bubbles. And because of all the gelatin and collagen as it cooks, if you chill it in there, it will be sliceable and completely sealed. The other thing that happens is if you set your salt, especially by weight, so you know how much weight to how much salt, you have a barrier. So you don't introduce liquid, you don't remove flavor, you don't remove salt. So you got to be careful you don't over season because it'll get really salty. But whatever flavor's in there, or whatever flavor you've added, herbs and spices and such, is all trapped in there for that entire 16-hour cook time.
I know it's
So
hard.
you have control of flavor profile as well as tenderness. And then with it under vacuum, you can let it chill either in the fridge or typically you finish sous vide in an ice bath if you're not going to serve it right away, because you want to take it from the zone you're holding it in, which is safe, usually above 135 to 145. You drop it down back into your safe zone below 41 degrees with an ice bath. Well, that will set up something that's really collagen-y, like pig head, and will get it to form into a loaf, so it's all gelatinous again. So when you cut the bag off, you cut your strings off, you have the ability to cut and slice that thin and easily, and then you can warm it up. And then you can, and then you could either sear it in a pan real thin for like breakfast meat or something, or you could, and by the way, when you do the sous vide, the skin and the fat all melt together. They all become flavored. The skin is softened. The fat renders a little bit. You don't even notice that it's a thick piece of fat because it's so flavorful. And then the meat. In fact, I know a chef that cuts into like 1-inch cubes when it's cold, and then coats it in like in a crumb or in a cornmeal, or you could do a masa, and he fries the pig, basically a head cheese crouton. So it now warms up in the fryer, so it becomes soft and warm and unctuous, and it has that crispy coating around it. You throw that on a salad, and man, you don't even tell people what it is. Just tell them it's pork, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's the best thing I put in my mouth." So
the method where you cook seafood in lime juice, ceviche.
Ceviche.
Yum.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, use a high acid wine vinegar, or citrus juice. Very tasty. You need to be careful that you have extremely fresh and quality seafood. I do recommend you buy seafood that's been properly frozen, so that you eliminate any chance of parasites. But yes, properly prepared ceviche with scallops, with shrimp, with fish is amazing.
Helix TV. For those of you guys who don't know.
Sub-vide.
So what was that?
Oh, sous vide. Okay.
Sous vide.
Yeah.
Sous vide. SOUS.
Which is different than sous vide Or what's the third? There's the other one is
Typing with a cat in my arms.
yes.
Hard.
Sous vide
Sous
means
vide.
under vacuum or under pressure, depending on how you
Yeah.
translate it. So if you take a bag or a barrier and you remove all the air and create a vacuum, that is in simply sous vide, and then you typically maintain temperature by putting it in a water bath that's at a controlled temperature. And
A
you
white
cook it.
picket fence knows why I have my cat named Helix. Uh, we get another cat, will we name him Double? We used to have
We
another
had another
cat.
one. He disappeared.
He didn't. He was skittish, and we ended up calling him Skittles. So no, he didn't get the name Double. But he'll if we get another black cat, do we have to name him Double because he's also a double of Helix?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah.
ceviche or raw, anything raw on the boat is great. Just you need to be aware of your varieties that are parasite prone,
Yeah.
because when it's fresh catch, you haven't gone through the freeze process. But scallops generally are not parasite prone, so raw scallops are amazing and they're very sweet.
Yeah.
They can have a mineral um, to
Little.
them sometimes, depending on where they come out, what type of water. But scallops, super fresh catch shrimp, not land pond shrimp, but can make a nice ceviche. And then most of your fish that you would use, otherwise you would see for sushi, generally work well. I would not do tilapia.
Ugh.
A lot of people do
I don't
tilapia
know. I just
for
don't like tilapia.
ceviche. I would not do tilapia unless it's been previously frozen, um, hard frozen. So
Feeling a little better. Yeah. Um, yes. So Suburban Hillbilly and White Picket Fence know the kitty's name, which it will be hard to have a question be what is the cat's name
uh,
because everybody wanted to call him Felix at first,
that's right.
but and it does it's similar. Anyway, parents had plenty cats. One is ready to pop. Oh boy. Um, yeah, our cat is fixed and it's a boy, so we don't have that issue. But but he was an indoor cat in New York for a long time, and then he became indoor outdoor here, but doesn't travel very far. But he is good at hunting chipmunks. Um, okay. Son-in-law has a ton of cats. They just show up at their house. You had a club that they did that
We
on the
we had a
loading dock.
we had a place that I worked that they got a couple of cats or a couple strays showed up because we had dumpsters and they weren't kept real messy, but the cats show up in the neighborhood area.
Hmm.
At one point, they called the Humane Society or somebody got them to trap all of them or all of them that they could find, had them all fixed.
Yeah.
And because it went like they wanted a few because we were having a little bit of mice issues. It was before I started there. Well, we got to a point where we had like 20 or 30 cats, and you go out there late at night, end of the shift to bring out trash, and it was a little freaky. I mean, there were cats everywhere.
Everywhere.
It was starting to smell like cats, and then occasionally a couple of them got in the basement.
And that wouldn't be
One of
good.
them got in the back room and peed all over. It
Oh
smelled
no.
terrible, and sprayed all over. So and then they got them fixed, and then they had more, and the neighbors were screaming about it. We're like, hey, they're all fixed, so you guys are sending them over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was a good thing, and then it was a bad thing. So I'm not a big cat fan. Helix is fine. I don't mind them, but
Helix
um,
acts like a dog.
yeah, they're not. Cats are not something I would necessarily choose to have. I mean, outdoor cat, bargain cat, that's fine. But yeah, they're not my biggest. And
He's not. He's a dog person.
Helix is fine, but I like dogs.
Yeah, there's two cats that you said, two cats you've met that you've said are dogs
Yeah,
and cat
yeah,
bodies.
yeah. Juno's okay.
Juno
Yeah,
is my
Juno, yeah.
parents was my parents'
Cool.
cat
Yeah, he
until a
passed
few
away
months ago.
recently.
At 21 years old, he was
Yeah.
old. Two tuxedos, both fixed, named Jay Morrison, and the other's Freddie M. So
What's wrong with tilapia? Tilapia, there's nothing wrong with it per se. Tilapia has
I
a little
don't
more of
like
a muddy flavor. Most of it's grown in ponds, so it's aquaculture, leading to it can be stirred up in a lot of mud. So flavor profile is not as clean, and some people think of it tasting more like a river fish than an ocean fish. Aside from that, because it's a cultivated fish, you have some very clean operations. Especially, we were buying some stuff out of Chile and stuff that was very good. They're really good about demudding it, really good about the water and the feed. The problem being a lot of it comes from Asia, and it's a warm water fish. So it's prone to parasites. It's grown in high density ponds. It's fed all kinds of corn and soy and other weird, weird byproduct pellets. So you can get wash off from, from the surrounding area accidentally. You can purposefully introduce waste related things like animal waste or other things which they will eat, to keep feed costs down. So much of it, the supply is not well treated, and I think it's not great. But the other problem is if you feed it too much corn and soy, it ends up with low omega-3, high
Mm-hmm.
omega-6 or 9 or whatever, which is basically what a bad, what a burger, like a, where you say, oh, it's the bad fat, and you eat fish for omega-3 or for the flavor. So if you're eating it for health and you're feeding it a heavy pellet diet,
It's
it
not.
doesn't have the omega-3. In fact, it's worse than, say, a fast food burger on that end.
You're better off
I would
going.
rather eat the fast food burger. And then yeah,
Yeah.
so the health benefits are minimized, the flavor isn't great, and the care and treatment on a lot
It's
of
not
it's not good.
good.
Now there are certified areas and ones, and you can learn about some of them, that are there is good tilapia.
Mhm.
So there is such a thing as wild tilapia, but almost basically what we eat is farm raised. And so, yeah, I would be very careful with that. Actually, anything coming out of East Asia because of the warm water and the lax regulations, I would be very careful with it, and ask a lot of questions, especially if it's really cheap. There's some really, really nasty things going on, and that goes through catfish, tilapia, um, swai basa is very inexpensive and popular. Um, a lot of the shrimp also, and most of the shrimp's coming out of East Asia. You don't know a lot about it. I mean, it's hard to trace it back, and that's why people are highly abusing or accidentally abusing, chemical runoff. There are fish ponds that almost directly let sewage, water runoff from the cities or from agriculture. They divert the sewage into their
Ugh.
ponds because it builds the nutrients, and these are very robust fish, so they go and eat it. The problem is, even because they can survive, do I really want to be eating that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just it's really nasty, and as good chefs try and protect their clients and buy from good
Mhm.
fishmongers and not cut the corners and pay. Now, a lot of chefs don't even know. I'd say fine dining chefs definitely know. Some people are unscrupulous and will just buy the cheap stuff to make money. I would just say if anything that you're eating, the dirtiest thing you're eating is your fish and shellfish. Be very, very skeptical. If you're going to spend extra money on something, I'll go eat the McDonald's burger, and I'll go ask questions and go to the highly reputable fishmonger in town and poke around and pay the extra money for the fish if I had to pick the two. It's really just a disgusting, unfortunate situation. But to get enough fish to feed the world, we need aquaculture. You can't just do wild fish. There isn't enough around. So it's a very, very difficult question.
Definitely not feeling hungry this
Yeah,
time.
sorry. It's no, and I think it's something we talk about a lot, and professionally we don't talk about it enough. So, fast food and
Yeah, fresh
a-
catch for the
asking
ceviche, please.
asking a lot of questions, and your
Yeah,
servers aren't going to know, and the chef may not know.
yeah.
Packages will trace you back to some of it, and there are some. By the way, if you want to know more about good things, you have the Blue Ocean Sustainable Fish Projects. There's 2 or 3 different certifications you can find online, and if they happen to use any of those, the chances that you're getting something that's pretty decent. Massive amounts of shrimp died off going back a few years ago. Flooding, weather problems, but they started growing them in extremely dense, and they thought that worked. And then they have it's a sea lice that affects shrimp, and it killed
Hmm.
off
A lot of them.
massive amounts of shrimp around the world. The shrimp supply. These
It's
these are aquaculture, not wild ones, but almost everything we eat is aquaculture.
monoculture in general just leads to disaster.
Yeah, and it's just it uses a lot of water. I'm not getting on a big environmental thing because I'm moderated about how we use our environment. I think we should use our environment, but we have a lot of flow out
You gotta
of
be
water
careful.
and damaging the water because you need so much fresh water to wash out basically the sewage. Salmon's the same situation. We lost most of the salmon due to farming practices, parasitic activity. It can be done properly, and I think that's a great asset. But we're all, and then you can introduce um, antibiotics, both in shrimp and in fish.
Mm.
They can introduce antibiotics to kill down bacteria, kill down parasites. So it's, yeah, shrimp is a problem. Salmon has been a problem. They've gotten better. They fixed some of it.
I
And
love
your
my
warm
shrimp.
water fish are your bigger problems. They grow faster. Your cold water fish, when water's cold, bacteria grows slower.
Yeah.
So you have a lot less problem with cold water fish.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
Sea
it's
fish.
it's it's something we should talk about more because I think people that get paid well to do the right things deserve it. And and having a feeding process where fish poop and they feed the water for plants or for other things. You can have a permaculture cycle.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you have to have inputs and outputs that are in proportion and work.
Yeah.
You can't just do one and have the other. So eat at McDonald's, save dollars. Yeah, I'm not going to prejudice against any particular food company. I'm not terribly opposed to McDonald's, although there's, you can argue lots of things about it. But I like Wendy's better. How about that?
How about limit fast food?
But limit your dose of fast food for fresh food and growing it out of your garden.
Yeah.
Buy good fish when you can. Buy good meat when you can.
Yeah.
And
someone way back when said they like walleye.
Yeah, we like walleye.
Yes, that was my grandfather's favorite fish.
Yeah,
He
I don't think there is
walleye.
farm raised walleye, by the way, but it's limited supply.
It's a northern fish.
Cold water.
Yeah.
Pike,
So, yeah.
walleye pike.
Yeah.
So it's a freshwater pike, different than the ocean pike, which is also decent. Has human DNA in their food. Yeah, I think there's probably human DNA in most everything.
A lot of processed food probably has some because there's so many. I mean, okay, if you have any dander any skin flake coming off, you're gonna get
to get a DNA to show up in a PCR is actually it's hard not to put it in there. But yeah, anything that has a mass production chain.
Yeah, they are making fake meat now.
Yeah,
not at the not at McDonald's.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern when you have such large commissary kitchens. When you do have something go bad and you have a contamination, it affects so many people.
Frankly, if you ate at a restaurant, you probably ate human DNA because there's probably some skin or something that came off.
There's so many things, even good restaurants, but there's the things that people do in restaurants is, and I can tell you, I've worked in pretty clean places, and if we see anybody doing anything, they're fired right away, and I haven't had problems.
And I'm not even talking about that.
Hand washing.
In order to, if you think about, okay, the places that are the most strict about human DNA labs, IVF centers, their protocol for covering up is so tight. Do you ever see any chefs in kitchens who are that covered up?
In Asia, so you're actually seeing better food code in Asia where everybody wears masks, everybody wears gloves.
Japan mostly.
You're seeing it in a lot of places.
Okay.
Because they're concerned about, say, a wealthy, clean population, which doesn't make them any cleaner, is so concerned about the help, which is technically maybe poor.
Linda, if you cooked yourself, you probably have some of your own skin in your food.
Yeah. So you're finding a lot of places what they do is they'll give, the reason we use uniforms is so people didn't come in there, in their scrubby clothes because they couldn't afford them. You gave them uniforms so they looked presentable and they had something clean. Mm-hmm. So people have gone to gloves and masks and head coverings and other places where everybody's more covered. And if you go into a food manufacturing establishment, which is different than a restaurant, totally different, there everybody's downed and gowned with maybe not face covering, but sometimes your food lines, if you're doing standard food lines, they're going to have face covering also. Just like at a hospital, because you can't do that. So sorry to put that thought in the brain, but I mean, I'm just thinking from my genetics side, what it takes to keep all human DNA out of whatever you're working with. And water in the air from breathing could have small amounts of DNA. But yeah, that's contamination in general is a problem we need to be very conscious as how we handle things. Oldest daughter spent a week in isolation due to lab tech's needs before the culture cup was sealed. Oh jeez. Bad. Oh, that's horrible. Okay, can I do sous vide with a
programmable cooktop stove and pot and a 109 beer pump.
You could get close. So I've done, you can take a Ziploc bag, you can take a bath of water, you can slide that Ziploc bag into the water, pushing most of the air out and close it. You can then take a bath of water that you've gotten at the right temperature by turning your heat on or off occasionally, and you can sous vide in that. I did that for a cook test. That's pretty rudimentary, and you got to be there to watch it. Um, if you have a warmer pot, like a crock pot or like a buffet warmer where you can dial it up and down, and you can dial it in to the temperature you want, you can sous vide in that. You can do a warmer, almost like basically a sous vide, a thermal circulator, which is most commonly used, looks like it's basically a fish pump with a heater on it. It's like a heated fish pump. Thing is, it'll get up to almost boiling. So you could put a hot stick into water that's designed for it. You can maintain water temperature that way. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. Right now, you can get a sous vide thermal circulator for about $150. I like the Joule the best because it has nice data and programs that come with it. I have other sources. I don't use their programs a lot, but they are very good. And then the other one is starts with an A.
I don't know it.
A Novo.
Okay.
And they're both around, if you look for a good deal, around $150. I think it's a decent, they're not cheap, but I think it's a decent buy. By the way, you can pre-cook your chicken, pre-frying it if you're doing fried chicken and get the world's most amazing. It's basically what commercial chicken places do. They pre-cook it and tenderize the leg and thigh first, and then they lesser cook the breast, and then while it's warm, they fry it all, and you can get the best fried chicken you've ever had.
Chemicals in the plastic bag.
Yeah, you need to be a little bit concerned about that generally.
Because it's heated.
Yes, and there are people that are concerned. A lot of people use the Ziploc style bag because they are food grade and they have been tested for food grade. Now, some people complain that there are issues with the FDA and USDA and they're corrupted and things have been approved that shouldn't be. That's a separate issue. So assuming they have gone through the right process for food grade, they are microwave and heat tolerable, there shouldn't be a problem. If you don't trust the governmental certifications, now there are some silicone pouches that are being sold on the internet. It's a closable pouch. Silicone doesn't, and you can sous vide in these thick silicone pouches.
Okay. Lokesh Holmes said, pig head, they're really talking about the muscles of the cheek. It's muscle like anywhere else in the body.
Yeah, no organs. So
we're not talking about brain.
Yeah,
we're talking about like outside the bones. So mainly muscle.
So it's the jaw muscles, the jowls, the jaw muscles, all the muscles that make your facial expressions. It's the fat related to that and the skin over the top. So there is actually no organs in that style.
No.
Some people do include tongue or brain or eyes or something, ears, but not necessary.
Tongue has a muscle too, though.
Yeah, and the tongue is a muscle. So the fat, skin, and muscle is exactly the same as if you took it off the legs. So yeah, and I think there's a debate about the FDA and USDA, how much industry plays into government and dictates government and the cross paths, just like they're talking about the airline industry. You need specialists and technical people that understand and can do the job. On the other hand, are they really looking at who's paying who? So I think it's legitimate to consider some of that situation.
Food sailor bag as boiling bag.
Food sailor bags are actually, that's the ideal. That is the home method of a vac-seal bag. They also are specifically food grade for hot and cold. So I use them. I'm okay with it.
And Green Gables beef cheek tacos, yeah. Pork cheek, beef cheek, those are really
they're really good muscles.
Really
so
good.
You look for muscles that move a lot.
Yeah.
But don't take a lot of stress and weight, and they will be both tender and flavorful. Movement is flavor, low weight bearing, but lots of movement is tenderness, and so you put the two together, it's amazing. Glycol is in actually tremendous amounts of food. And they say that there's a food grade glycol that is edible and safe. It seems odd. I don't know a lot about the details on glycol, I've actually wondered. Mountain Dew has glycol in it. Glycol is used to chemically, I think, as a binder for some flavors. Glycol also doesn't freeze well, so you get some softening and textural properties. It's a very small amount. I don't know the ins and outs of glycol consumption. I can tell you, if you read your packages all week, you're going to find glycol
In a lot of
in
stuff.
a lot of things in small amounts.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have any opinion.
Or you just make it, grow and harvest it yourself,
I'm
and then
not
go.
real excited about having glycol. I'm not sure I need glycol in my ice cream.
Probably not.
Or so yeah, I'm not really excited about it. I'd prefer it not be there, but I don't know the health end of it.
Yeah. We should really wrap up because I have to work tomorrow and I am tired. And yes, Helix does
Yeah.
keep coming back, and Suburban Hillbilly keeps putting Helix with a heart.
Yeah,
So
so I
you
would
still
I
will
would say
fill.
on the food things, going into, and everybody has a tolerance. They have their own personal brain and stomach tolerance for these things. I have a pretty strong tolerance because I have a science background, and I think we need to address and think about these things. And I've spent a lot of years working with them. Some of the things that bother us the most probably aren't a big deal. Some of the things that bother us very little, like where does our seafood come from, is probably
Bigger deal.
one of my biggest concerns, more so than where does my meat come from, is where does my fish and seafood come from. Um, but yeah, it's pretty real stuff, and I don't think it's a thing that people should be extremely scared about. But within your tolerance, knowing what you're eating, and if you're concerned about what you're eating, finding the largest portion that you can to handle it yourself or purchase it from
Someone you
friends
know.
that you highly trust will be the best way to eliminate,
Know your farmer.
if you think the cafeteria at work makes gross food, bringing your lunch is the fastest, simplest way to solve that problem. Of course, should the cafeteria at work make great fresh food? Yeah, but is it going to happen? Probably not. So,
Well, pick a fence. I think you're right about that because around 10 o'clock he usually
yeah.
starts showing up, and I think he does want me to take him back to bed. In fact, he wants me to go take him back so I could turn on the sink next to his water bowl that has water in it so he can drink straight from the
The other
faucet.
thing I would say about food right now, food is more and more, and it's still a lot of fresh production in the US, around the world. There is lots and lots of food. There really isn't fresh production. Very few places are they bringing in raw ingredients, cutting, chopping, and cooking them. I mean, you've seen the packages. It's not just fast food, it's sit down fast food. It's a lot of finer dining restaurants and all your chain restaurants. Almost everything, sauces, soups, comes in pre portioned, pre made, and they're finishing them, and because of cost and labor and knowledge and consistency and safety and whatever, most of what comes into restaurants is ready to eat or value added, and you're finishing it. Cooks aren't really cooks in the old way; they're food preparers, and that's the vast amount of our food, probably 90% plus. Um,
The restaurant
Fine
food.
dining, expensive restaurants, which I don't think most any of us can go to on a daily basis. Um, Maybe the places that the vast majority of their food is fresh prepped and the pretty much mostly raw ingredients come in. Doesn't mean that they don't buy ketchup and they don't buy mayonnaise and and things. Um,
Worcestershire sauce.
so
There was a question on how do you say
yeah.
Worcestershire?
So I think the majority of food is actually out of the control of the operator. So the operator needs to buy smartly, but it's factory produced. So at this point, we're too far gone. If you're concerned about that, the only way, yeah, and line cooks aren't. They're assembly cooks. Most of them are not scratch cooking. I've scratch cooked most of my career. I mean, I've done a variety of we do value added things, but pretty much I can scratch cook anything because of my training. But there isn't a lot of that around. You can't afford it in volume, or so the only way to repair that system for the most part is actually to cook at home where possible. I have not seen that episode yet. I've heard really good things on it. Um, so
No.
yeah, I think not scary, but the more you cook at home and you control the raw products that you handle and you cook simply, then when you do eat prepared items, if there are damaging things, the chances that you'll get around them or you'll be more, you'll have a better immunity and a better general nutrition. I think that it's a balance point. So I'm not too afraid to eat in most places unless I see something really gross. But
There's
we're
one place I will never eat again, but that's
well, you
because I
got
get
sick
sick
at a
of it.
place, which happened. Yeah, and it was probably poor personal hygiene, which is that's the biggest concern,
Mhm.
is poor personal hygiene at the point of service, not the factory production. the source of food and the quality and health of source food is another control point. Um, so yeah, it's
Yep.
cook as much as you can,
Grow as much as you
and I
can.
think that's a
Yep.
good thing. I mean, I don't think I fully understood that. Over the years, I've seen more and more pieces, and food has changed. Also,
Yeah.
how we handle it. Grew up in a fairly scratch cooking household, even for the time we were growing up, and it's a luxury. It was said many years ago. I don't know who first said it. the the rich and the poor. The luxury is not that people eat and that people are starving. Yes, there are people that don't have enough, have food insecurity and don't have enough food at times, but the majority of people find something to eat. There is a source for everybody to be fed in the country, and at least we hope that. The bigger problem is the quality of feeding. So the what distinguishes the wealthy is the ability to choose. Oh, I want organic. I want fresh. I want a personal chef. I want to go to a fancier, more expensive restaurant that hand tailors my food. Whereas if you have less money, you have less of those choices. So you pick other places, and you can't always do that. And then finally, um, the last thing that kind of happens with that is the wealthy ultimately are going to pay to eat like the poor used to eat. So if you go into the poorer and the rural and the wealthy are going to be the ones eating well. And it's the city and the middle ground into the future that are going to be in food deserts that are suffering from maybe a poor nutritional balance.
Okay, guys, everybody's kind of cutting
Yep.
out. We have to
Yeah, we got
go.
to go. It's late.
It is late. But we will. Not sure if we'll be back next week. It's holiday, and I think most people are going to be busy anyway. We will definitely be back the week after.
We'll
So
be getting smoothies at McDonald's on the road.
no, we
No,
won't.
probably not.
No. But anyway, we will. I will probably get 2 videos out in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3.
Garbage food is cheap, but you know what? Roots and vegetables and onions
Are
and
cheaper.
bulk unprepared items are cheap too. We just have to put the time into it.
Yeah.
River prawns from Malaysia. I would check. There is good shrimp and seafood from Malaysia,
Yeah.
and there is bad. It has to do with the producer, and I couldn't tell you without
Looking.
doing investigations that's a company by company. You have to do your own work on it. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you either way on that one.
Yeah. Anyway, we will say good night because I am exhausted, and I'll say happy
Yep.
Easter. Yeah, happy
Easter,
Easter, Passover,
Passover. Yep.
whatever your flavor. Absolutely. Thanks for joining us tonight. We will definitely see you in a couple weeks, if not next week. Talk to you guys later. Bye.